Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Simplified, a webinar series where financial topics are made easy with AIB Life. Today, we're going to talk about auto-enrolment, the new mandatory pension scheme from the Irish government. My name is Grania Mullins and I'm your host, but I am first and foremost a business owner just like all of you, and I have a team of 18 people. If, like me, you have a lot of questions, stay tuned because we've gathered some really incredible experts to help us unpack this topic. I'm sure, like me, you're wondering where to start and how to ensure we are complying with the auto-enrolment. So I think it's time to meet our experts and hopefully they can help us get a grip on all of this. First, we have Roisin from the Department of Social Protection, who understands this topic better than anyone. So who better to break down the need-to-knows for Irish SMEs?
Hi, Grania. Thanks for having me.
And we're also joined by David Coldrick from AIB Life, who is an expert in other pension options. He'll talk through some solutions for those who auto-enrolment may not be the best option.
Hi, Grania. Happy to be here.
And finally, we have Anne-Marie Mulpeter from AIB, who is going to jump in on our Q&A panel towards the end. And she will help to answer all of the questions submitted by businesses from across the country. We're thrilled to have all of you here with us today, so let's jump straight in. Roisin, so what is auto-enrolment?
So auto-enrolment is a new retirement savings system for Ireland. Employees who meet the eligibility criteria will be automatically enrolled. And as announced last October, the system will be called My Future Fund.
And who will be auto-enrolled?
Employees who are aged between 23 and 60 and who are earning €20,000 or more per year across employments will be automatically enrolled. But any employee who's earning less than €20,000 or who's aged 18 to 66 can also opt in if they want.
And is there any other criteria for auto-enrolment?
Lastly, and probably most importantly, the employee should not have a pension scheme already. So if there is a pension contribution from an employee or an employer paid through the payroll system, the employee will be exempt from auto-enrolment for that employment. And this is because auto-enrolment is being set up for people who don't already have a pension and not to replace the existing pensions industry. Things like contracts don't come into it. So if somebody is working part-time or on probation, for example, and also people who are self-employed or who aren't currently working for an employer won't be eligible.
And what are the contribution rates?
So employers will match the employee's contribution and the state will also give a top-up. They'll start at 1.5% for the employee and employer and rise by 1.5% every 3 years until 6% is reached in year 10.
And will all new employees that start in employment start at 1.5%?
So the phasing in will take place in the first decade of auto-enrolment and not in the first 10 years of an employee's career. So any new employee who starts work, say at year 10, would start at the 6% rate.
Okay, that's really, really good to know. But how are these contributions calculated?
So the contributions are calculated on the employee's gross pay. And that means that anything that's included in the gross pay field is assessable for the contribution rate.
So this is a new expense for employers and businesses. Is there anything that the government is doing to help with this extra expense?
So the contributions will be capped at €80,000 salary. So once an employee reaches that salary, NRSA will stop the contributions in the next pay run and stop them for the rest of the tax year.
And I've heard you mention NRSA a few times. What is NRSA?
So NRSA is the National Automatic Enrolment Retirement Savings Authority, and it's a new body being set up under the aegis of the Department of Social Protection, and they'll administer the scheme. They'll administer it in the best interests of the employees, and their remit will include collecting the contributions, allocating the investment returns, operating an online portal for employees and employers, and facilitating the pot follows member approach. So that will mean employees will keep one pot in the system as they move from job to job. NRSA will also ensure compliance with the auto-enrolment legislation and provide information to employees and employers.
And how will all of this work for employers or businesses?
So NRSA will use payroll data from revenue to identify the eligible employees. And once they've been identified, they'll be enrolled immediately. That means there are no waiting periods for the scheme. They'll send a payroll notification called an AEPN, or auto-enrolment payroll notification, through payroll software, just like revenue does for the collection of tax. Employers will then apply the payroll notification and the contributions will be calculated. Employers will then need to send their contribution and their employees' contribution to NRSA. Now, there'll be a couple of ways to do this, but a variable direct debit will probably be the easiest way. NRSA will then collect the state top-up separately and pool all of the contributions and send them to the investment management companies, who will invest the money and generate the returns. NRSA will then manage the pot for the employees and provide them information through the online portal so they can see how their savings are getting on.
I think we're all wondering what impact this will have on employers.
So the bulk of the administration of the scheme will fall to NRSA, and that means employers will have very little to do, especially if you compare it with running their own occupational scheme. Now, this will be achieved by using payroll software that employers already have. And for those employers who don't use payroll software, they'll be able to use the online portal to check their record and make contributions. Employers won't have to worry about admin tasks like who should or shouldn't be in the scheme, or the opt-in or opt-out or suspend contributions, because NRSA will manage all of that. But they will have some responsibilities because automatic enrolment is an employment right set out in legislation. So there are protections, including fines and penalties for employers who prevent their employees from joining or who force them to opt out. And any withheld or underpaid contributions will have interest applied. And so it's really important that employers make themselves aware and know their obligations and responsibilities.
I'm starting to learn how much that I need to do to prepare myself as well. But how can other employers just like me prepare? What do we need to do now?
So the most important thing probably is to budget for the introduction of My Future Fund. Another thing you can do is to register with NRSA before the launch of the scheme, and at that point you'll also be able to set up the variable direct debit. Employers should also consider what options they already have for their employees and if their employees are availing of those options. Because remember, if there's no pension contribution from the employee or employer through the payroll system, then the employee will likely be auto-enrolled. But if that happens, they can always join another pension scheme if they want to in the future.
And my very last question is, you've just taught me so much, but if I haven't taken it all in or if I want to find out more information, where can I get that extra information?
So our website is gov.ie/auto-enrolment, and that's got all the information that's available. We also have another resource on YouTube, on the department's YouTube channel, and there's a playlist of videos there that go through all the information.
Thanks for that, Roisin. I'm definitely a lot clearer on what I need to look at now for my business. Now, how about if some or all of my staff might be better served by an option outside of auto-enrolment? David, from what I understand, you can help clarify what the solution is for business owners and employees who wouldn't be eligible for or suitable for auto-enrolment.
Yeah, maybe as a start, like if as an employer you don't currently provide your employees with access to an occupational pension scheme, so a defined contribution or a defined benefit arrangement, then auto-enrolment should certainly be a prompt to consider what other options might provide better outcomes for your employees.
And I've heard that if you are a higher rate taxpayer, then auto-enrolment might not be the best option for you. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true, Grania. I think if you have higher rate taxpayers on your payroll, an alternative solution like a PRSA scheme, for example, might be a better option. Auto-enrolment will offer the equivalent of 25% tax relief. Compared to other pension products like PRSAs, it would be a little lower because they can offer up to 40%. And this would be a key consideration for those higher rate taxpayers.
And you've mentioned PRSAs a few times. What is a PRSA?
Yeah, a PRSA is a personal retirement savings account. As the name suggests, it's an account that you can use to save for your retirement. You can make regular payments or contributions, as well as lump sum contributions into your PRSA. You can invest your savings in a wide variety of investment funds. Then your retirement benefits are based on the contributions that you make to the PRSA and the investment returns earned on those contributions. In terms of tax, you don't pay tax on any investment gains, but you might end up paying tax on the retirement benefits that you get from your PRSA. Another important feature, I think, of a PRSA is that they are portable. So as an employee, you can carry your PRSA from job to job, or you can transfer it to another PRSA provider without any charge or penalty to the employee.
That sounds like there's a lot more flexibilities with PRSAs. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's true. The proposed auto-enrollment scheme would tend to be less flexible than PRSAs in a number of areas. For example, the additional voluntary contributions or lump sum top-ups that I mentioned that the PRSA permits won't be permitted under the auto-enrollment scheme. The choice of investment is much more limited. There are no debt and service benefits, and there would be stricter requirements around retirement age. So in terms of early retirement options, there would be none other than ill health under the auto-enrollment scheme. And then for PRSAs, you can also increase, decrease, or stop contributions at any time. There wouldn't be that same level of contribution flexibility under the auto-enrollment scheme. So I would say, yes, all in all, a PRSA would offer greater flexibility than the auto-enrollment scheme.
David, that's all really, really interesting. Do you have any last piece of advice that you'd like to give the listeners?
Well, maybe one other important point to mention is that while auto-enrolment might be the best choice for some or all of your employees at the outset, that may not stay the case. So as your business grows, employees change tax bands, auto-enrolment might not continue to be the best option in that case. So I think as an employer, you should continue to review your options and the options of your employees as your business then continues to grow.
Thanks, David. That's a fantastic summary of alternative options to auto-enrolment. Now it's time to put each of you on the spot as we're going to run through some questions. So will this be a lot of work for employers?
The short answer is no, because NRSA will do pretty much all of the administration of the scheme. There'll only be a couple of things for employers to do, like applying the payroll notification, sending the contributions to NRSA. But apart from that, there's not a whole much more.
And does an employer have to let their employees know once they have been auto-enrolled?
Yes, so under the auto-enrolment legislation, employers do need to inform their employees when they've been enrolled and also give them their enrolment date. But to make that as easy as possible for employers, we'll provide templates and advice to them.
And if an employee already has a PRSA, should they be looking at stopping that PRSA to start auto-enrolment, or what do you think, David? I think you might be best to answer that.
Yeah, well, I think it's certainly an important point at which you would look for financial advice. As I mentioned earlier, if you're a higher rate taxpayer and you have a PRSA, the likelihood is that the PRSA will continue to be the better option for you. But if you're a lower rate taxpayer, auto-enrolment may have some benefits that you see over the PRSA, but it certainly is a point at which you should look for financial advice.
And can self-employed people join auto-enrolment?
So as Roisin mentioned earlier, the current scheme won't allow self-employed sole traders to join at outset. So I think in that case, again, the PRSA would be a good option to explore. If over time, it does become available, again, it's probably a point at which someone should take financial advice.
And would that include me? I'm a sole director of a limited company. Am I classed as self-employed?
So it depends on your PRSI class and how you're classed. So if you're classed as an employee and you're paying PRSI Class A, well then you would be considered for the eligibility criteria. But if you're paying Class S and you're classed as self-employed, well then you fall out of scope.
And how would I find out what PRSI class I am in?
Your accountant is probably best placed to advise you.
And what are the benefits of auto-enrolment for employers?
So employers can ensure that their employees are looked after in retirement without having to set up or administer a company pension scheme. They can increase their competitiveness and attractiveness as an employer. And it's also important to note that employer contributions will be deductible for corporation tax purposes.
And just for employers as well, Gráinne, it's really important that they're getting advice for the employees. So you as a company owner are bringing somebody in with expertise, be it on auto-enrolment, be it on PRSAs, to do either presentations or have conversations with your staff. So you're making them aware and making you as an employer doing the right thing for your employee, be it auto-enrolment or PRSA, whatever the decision is.
That's all very true, and I think there's a lot of things we all need to prepare over the next few months. Will people on short-term contracts be enrolled? Like, I'm even considering some of my team who are part-timers, and at the start of the year they may not be earning enough to reach the threshold, but towards the end of the year they would.
Yeah, so rather than wait until somebody reaches the €20,000 threshold, we're going to use a look-back period of up to 13 weeks. And over that time, NRSA will check the pay slips, and once it's determined that they would likely meet the €20,000, so that would be like on a pro rata basis, then they will be enrolled.
And then at the end of the year, if they've reached the €20,000 threshold, will we have to pay that back over the previous year?
No, so it won't be backdated. So once they've been deemed eligible, then they'll be enrolled straight away and contributions will start from then.
And is that in those first few weeks of every year or just in their first few weeks of employment?
Just the first few weeks of employment. So once somebody is enrolled, they stay enrolled. And even if they drop below €20,000 a year at any stage, they don't drop out. They stay in, and the contribution is a percentage of their salary. So they won't be paying more on a lower salary.
Will employees who have to wait to join their company's occupational scheme be automatically enrolled when the deadline starts?
Yeah, so this can happen if there is a waiting period. Sometimes companies wait until someone has completed their probation to enrol them in the occupational scheme. And because there is no waiting periods for auto-enrolment, and if the employee meets the eligibility criteria, they could very likely be enrolled. But if that happens and the employee later wants to join their employer's occupational scheme, they can do that at any time.
And will that lead to then two pension pots, so the PRSA potentially and the auto-enrolment, and how, when in retirement, how will that combine?
Yeah, so at the moment, it won't be possible to transfer in or out of the scheme, but that will likely change in the next few years. Once the scheme is up and running, more benefits and things will be introduced. But as it stands, if they have the two separate pots, well, then they'll draw both of them down separately at retirement.
Yeah, that's just a little bit about the flexibility of the PRSA, so you can increase, decrease, move in and out. So there's a lot of flexibility with it. So back again to what we're advising on, is it the right thing to go into the auto-enrolment? Is it the right thing to do the PRSA? So it's back to, and then there's just the different benefits on retirement age and when you can access the pot and not.
Okay, and again, that has to be discussed with a financial advisor really to see what's best for the employer, the business and the employees.
And look at previous employments, or look at lots of different things, or is there an employee scheme in that where they're currently working, what they can do and what they can't do. So just give them all the options available to them.
I think it's important to highlight as well that the scheme as it's designed currently is a day one scenario, and that's going to change in the future. Once NRSA is up and running, there'll be a CEO, a board of directors, and they'll probably take it in further directions, add more benefits. Really at the moment, it's just to get it up and running and out for people, and then extra benefits will be added in time.
And it is really great that there is a pension pot being started for people in their early 20s, because I think a lot of us can avoid it and we should be jumping on it early, but it is a great initiative, and it's just a matter of employers then figuring out how we can do it best to suit our businesses.
It's an awareness thing, Grania. I don't think people are aware, and people go and put it on the long finger and we must do, and this is just going to make people go, you know what, I need to do something about this. I need to have a conversation with somebody, and I need to just put plans in place. And we take customers on a journey. We bring them from start right through, from now they get married, they have kids, retirement, all the pot right through to retirement. So this is a journey and a start of a journey for them with their pension pot.
Yeah, and I think it's very normal for employers as well to focus on the things that are right now, that are inevitable and that are needed today. But sometimes we do need to future-proof ourselves and our employees as well. Yeah, very important.
Yeah. But that advice is really important, for employers, because as Anne-Marie says, so if you have an occupational pension scheme right now or a group PRSA, but it doesn't cover all of your employees, then you have the administration of potentially that scheme plus the auto-enrolment scheme. So, you really have to be aware of what that means for you.
Yeah, and then with the likes of a PRSA, is there a minimum contribution that is required for a PRSA?
No. Well, different providers will actually have their own minimums, so it depends on the provider.
What happens to the contributions if an employee may pass away before their retirement age?
So if that happens, their pot at that stage will be crystallised and it will form part of their estate.
So auto-enrolment is clearly not for everyone. Anne-Marie, have you any advice on the next steps that a business should be taking right now?
Absolutely, Grania, and this is the thing for people to be taking right now, not waiting until the deadline kicks in. And as both Roisin and David have said, it's all about the advice we can give. We want to get in front of, as financial planning advisors and specialists, in front of the owners of companies or the business owners to advise them on what they can do for them and their employees going forward, because this isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. So as much as we can get in front of people now to advise them for going forward.
That's some really, really great questions and some really, really insightful answers. Thank you so much to everyone who has submitted questions. To wrap things up, I want to recap on some key takeaways from today's discussion. So as you can see on screen, you've still got loads of time to get organised before the deadline comes around. But if you'd like to learn more about what was discussed today, we will be sharing a one-sheeter and other resources in a follow-up email. Please also visit gov.ie/auto-enrolment and the Department of Social Protection YouTube channel at DSP-Social Protection. And of course, contact your AIB business advisor to discuss what implementing a PRSA might look like for you and for your business. Keep an eye on your inbox for the information on the upcoming webinars as part of our Simplified series, where we will break down even more financial topics just like this to make your life that little bit easier. Thanks once again to all of our guests, Roisin, David and Anne-Marie, for sharing their time and their incredible expertise. And thanks again to each of you that have tuned in today to the first episode of Simplified. We'll see you next time.